Hi, this is Josh of the Fun Times Guide, and what I'm showing you here is a couple of piles of pennies from this big, well, I wouldn't say big, but it's a 15-ounce coffee can of Lincoln cents I've saved over the course of the past 3 or 4 years. These are all different dates. What they'll have in common is that these are all pre-1983 Lincoln cents. Now, I saved these because up until the middle of 1982, the U.S. Mint struck 1-cent coins in a bronze composition, which is about 95% copper, 5% zinc most years. Some years it was 5% tin and zinc. But what makes these coins a little more valuable than face value is the copper content. At a minimum, these are worth about 1.8 to 2 cents a pop. So they're worth more than face value. They're too valuable to spend, not really valuable enough to really make any big money off of. But, I enjoy collecting coins, and I have had fun keeping these aside for my pocket change finds and roll finds and such. So in another video, I was going through these coins and showing you kind of how I was dividing everything up to look for certain types of errors and varieties and all those things. These are my rejects. Out of about 1,475 pennies, I have about 1,382 right here in this can that didn't have any significant errors or varieties or off-center strikes or those kinds of things. But what I did end up finding were a few cool things. So we'll start over here first. These are all Lincoln cents that have no evidence of wear. So essentially they're uncirculated. Now, yes, I did find them in rolls and they came up in pocket change. But I'm guessing, which I'm not surprised that these are uncirculated, I'm guessing that these are probably coins that are pennies that people received 35, 40, 50 years ago and just threw aside into a jar or a box because even 50 years ago, a penny wasn't worth a whole lot of money. So it's not uncommon that people have been throwing aside pennies. And when they're brand new, and the person who might have gotten these from aside, they retain their detail. And in fact, all these pennies here in this little pile show complete luster at all angles, even on the high points, when I flash them around in the light. And please pardon my hands. I've been going through a bunch of pennies, and someone had grime and such. I dug into a pile, and there was something on one of them. I don't know even what it was, and don't want to know what it was. But anyway, so pardon my fingers. But these all show complete luster. So these are all uncirculated, and they're probably worth 5 to 10 cents a pop. Nothing rare in here for sure, but they are worth a lot more than face value, at least proportionally. Now, what you see over here are, first of all, a couple of wheat cents that got into the pile, which is pretty neat. They're common, worth a few cents a pop, but I still keep them aside anyway. I do keep my wheat cents. What you see here are about 9 pennies, a few of the 1972s. Now, why was 72 an important date to look for? Well, that was the year that the U.S. Mint struck a number of different kinds of double dies. Now, none of the ones I have here are the Class 1 double die, which is worth like $200 and worth a lot of money. But these do seem to show signs of minor hub doubling in the date and then the inscription Liberty, which you really can't see in the detail in the video too well. But it is there, and it's not machine doubling. Now, machine doubling happens when the dies that are striking the coins are aging and they start to either shift during the strike or or wearing out to the point that they show basically a double impression of the lettering and the design. That's not the case here. There is some kind of hub doubling evident. Hub doubling being that when the hub, which creates the design on the die that strikes the coins, that's when the hub impresses the design twice at slightly different angles on the die. So whenever that die produces a coin, every coin it produces will show some evidence of that doubling from the shift that the die and the hub had while they were meeting to create the working dies that create these coins. So some of these, actually all the 72s here, show some kind of hub doubling. Again, it's not the major Class 1 double die, which is worth a lot of money, but they are apparently some minor double dies. And I want to go through my coin attribution catalog and see which ones these are, but they're worth a few bucks a piece. And then I came across 1960 small dates, which are another not very valuable variety, but they're a little scarcer than the large dates. Other pieces I looked for when I was going through these coins were the 69S double die, didn't see any here. 1970S small date, again, none here. I did find some 70S's, but none were small dates. I looked for 1982 D small date bronze. I came across many 82Ds, but none were the small date variety, so these are all common. So I was looking for various coins, and I was really quite fortunate to find a few that actually are worth quite more than face value. Another cool one I found is this 1976 cent with a counterstamp of the state of Kansas on there. Now, this is not a U.S. Mint variety. This is actually rather a post-mint counterstamp. These particular pieces, which were struck, I think, around 1979 to 81, most of these Lincoln cents that have the state counterstamps are dated up to 1981 or 82. And these were private mint counterstamps that were struck to commemorate the bicentennial or 200th birthday of our nation's existence in 1976. There are people who collect them. Believe it or not, even though it's not really a mint variety, there are folks who collect these and many other kinds of private mint counterstamps. So there's some value in that. I think it's neat anyway to hold aside. So what you see here, again, out of 1,500 or so pennies, there are 9 or 10 or 12, I guess, if you count the wheat cents, that are definitely worth holding aside. 70, 75 uncirculated pieces worth 5 or 10 cents a pop, and the rest are worth 1.8 to 2 cents a piece. I'll sell them to my coin dealer for a little premium over face value. I didn't make a windfall. I didn't pay off my home, but you know what? I found some pretty cool coins in circulation for face value, and I think it's not bad. So I'm hoping that this inspires you to look through your own coins and maybe find some cool varieties or eras or other neat, unusual pieces. And I'm wishing you all the best. Thanks for watching this video. Take care.